We are live. Well, there we are. There we are, TC. We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake. Half of your host. I got to be careful, TC. I'm used to being my own host, but I'm one half of your host, Blake Ruffino. We got Terrence, former Saints wide receiver, Terrence Copper in the building with us. TC, what's happening, brother?
Man, Blake, what's going on, man?
I gotta say, it's been a very busy week. T-City, it's been, I put my foot in my mouth. I do something typical. I said an absolute last week in saying that Jarvis Landry's not coming to the Saints. I not legitimate like that, but not thinking the Saints would pull the trigger. In less than 12 hours after I said it, actually 6 or 8 hours, the Saints pulled the trigger and Jarvis Landry's in the building. I mean, it's crazy, bro.
Man, that's a huge pickup. For one, it's a big pickup because he want to be here. You know, he want to be in New Orleans. You know, same thing with Matthew. That they want to be in New Orleans. You know, so when you have guys like that want to be there and the team want you there, it's going to be a great relationship. It's going to be an amazing relationship. I'm excited to see what's going to happen.
And TC, quite honestly, taking pay cuts to do it, right? Like, so we know the deal with Jarvis only taking a 1-year, $3 million deal, Tyron taking a pay cut. I mean, you're right. They want to be here. So we'll get into all that in the details, what you think as a former wide receiver, what that means for the offense, Jarvis Landry's game, everything. We'll jump into that as well. Drew Brees is in the news, your former quarterback. TC, look, social media takes a life of its own. Why people are mad and upset at Drew, I don't know. Why people are calling him a fake, I don't know. I think it's kind of crazy to me, but your former quarterback under some fire after all this social media debacle, I don't know what to really make of it all. So
my question is, what did he do to get on this fire that everybody's called him fake or whatever it is? What did he do?
I don't. So I don't remember what Drew's last contract was, but it's literally like the $20 million question. It's more of just a personal thing, I guess. You know, like personal shots at his character, and not about if he really wants to play football, which is again so wild to me.
Wow.
Because Drew just, I guess because he's not like me, he's not loud and quote unquote entertaining, but you got, like, for you and him, you have forgotten more football than I will know. Right. So I don't, when he's calling Spider 2 wide banana from the press box before they break the huddle, I mean, yes, he's doing a good job. He's telling you what's coming, TC.
Yeah. That's right.
That's
right.
But you know what? Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you something about Drew. Drew is the ultimate leader. I don't know anybody that has ever played with Drew that wouldn't go into battle with him right now. If Drew stayed in California, which I don't know where Drew stayed at, but if he stayed in California, he called me like, "Cop, I need you to come to Cali tomorrow. I need some help with something." I'm there. That's the type of guy Drew is. You would do anything for Drew. Drew is the ultimate leader. I don't see how anybody can question his character at all. Like, I don't see how. So that's my personal experience with him. But everybody that has played with Drew is going to tell you the exact same thing. Everybody. He's not putting on a show. He's not being fake. That's Drew.
TC, I forget the Ben Affleck Boston movie. Oh, The Town. When Ben Affleck walks in there to Jeremy Renner and he says, you can't, we're about to go do something. You can't ask me what, you can't ask me why, you can't ask me any questions, but we're about to go hurt some people. Okay. And Jeremy Renner goes, whose car are we going to take? That's exactly what you kind of just sounded like you said, like if Drew says, hey, I need you, his teammates are there. So we'll get into a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into a lot of that. Cop, I want to pick your brain a lot. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your brain a lot. Rookie minicamp this week. What does it mean? What can you actually prove in rookie minicamp? Like, are we overreacting to what we saw from some of these wide receivers? You know, the receivers had a huge day. Chris Olave, Anderson. I want your thoughts on how we are supposed to take all of that, because you've obviously been to one. Obviously teammates that have been through many small mini camps and rookie mini camps. So I want to
Mm-hmm.
pick your brain on that. But first off, TC, we can't do this if we don't pay the bills, though. I mean,
Right.
look, I don't know about you, but scare money don't make no money. So we got to talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. Guys, betonline.ag. Go over there today. Use the Believe promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV. Type in a little note says, "Hey, Terrence Copper and Blake Ruffino told me to go by," and then win all your bets. Win them all because they love it. All right, let's pay some bills. Back in 45 seconds. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. Our partners over at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's easy to get started, so head on over to their website. Use betonline.ag. Use that promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. That's BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag. Betonline.ag. I gotta be honest here, TC. They love you more than they love me. And in no way is that depressing. Roderick Dugas on Facebook says, "TC, what's up, big dog?" So does Tony Williams. A lot of questions coming in here. Wayne McBride says, "Who dat, baby?" If you have your questions, go ahead and fireman hashtag ask us, and we'll get to them. TC, so let's start off with the biggest news of the week. Last Friday, obviously, Jarvis Landry, Juice Landry from Lutcher, Louisiana. Obviously, we kind of know the downfall between the receivers and Baker Mayfield out in Cleveland. We know Jarvis Landry and his ties to New Orleans and LSU. But you mentioned it earlier. So I'm going to give you the floor and take a step back here. Juice signs a 1 year, $3 million deal, pretty much just a prove it deal. The first question I would ask you, how big of a deal is this for the Saints? But number two, how big of a risk is this for Jarvis Landry? Because God forbid, man, I mean, this is a big risk for him too. And I don't think people have talked about how big of a risk it is for him. But on both sides of the aisle, talk about both. It being good for the Saints and both good or bad for Jarvis Landry.
Okay, so let's talk about the Saints first. It's great for the Saints because not just about what he can do on the football field, but it's about what he's going to bring to that locker room, to the receiving core, because you got somewhat of a younger receiver core in there, especially with the rookie coming in. He can put him under his wing. He can teach him how to be a pro, because when you come in as a rookie, you don't really know how to be a pro. It's certain things that you just don't know, and you need that help from your veteran leadership. So when he comes in, that's going to be huge for him. That's going to be huge for the team, just the locker room presence. And then being able to take these young guys under his wing and teach them the ropes, teach them how to be pros, teach them as long as he have, just really mentoring those guys. And for him, I don't think it's a risk. It's not a risk at all. Think about it. So do you call something a risk when you want to be somewhere?
Oh,
do you really
I
think
do not. No, I do not
risk?
at all. I think it's a great point. No, I do not.
Yeah, so anytime you want to be somewhere, you're taking this risk, if you want to call it a risk, but actually he's probably not even calling it a risk. He's talking it like, listen, I want to be here, and whatever I need to do, I'm going to take the pay cut. I'm going to be here. And if I got to prove it, guess what? He'll prove it. Because he's a baller. He's an athlete. He's been playing in the NFL. Every year's a prove it year, honestly. Every year's a prove it year. He has made a ton of money. Like I said, I don't count nobody's pockets, but he's made a ton of money. So I don't think the money part of it is the issue at all. I think he wants to be in New Orleans because each year you got to prove yourself regardless, whether you got that big contract or whether you have, a year contract. You still got to prove yourself, so I don't think it's a risk at all for him coming.
Yeah, and let me clarify. I think a prove it year is how I should have said it. I think my choice of words were poor.
Mm-hmm.
So I will take the hit on that one. I agree, TC, from the standpoint of this, and I said this when he signed this Saturday on our show on AYS. There is zero excuses for Jameis at this point. Zero. Okay, like you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot say that you don't have weapons. Again, running back could be an issue if Alvin is out for 6 or 8 games. Fine. But, buddy, you got Michael Thomas, you got Chris Olave, and you have Jarvis. God bless it. Let's knock on wood. Barring injury, you could have the best receiving core in the NFL. And here's why, TC.
Mm-hmm.
DeAndre Hopkins is going to be there with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I mean, receiving core, you got Adams with the Raiders. But as a collective unit, can you name 3-4 guys that can be as explosive as and look, you're a former wide receiver. I mean, TC, we go around the league. Can you name another a wide receiving core that has this many weapons?
No, the only one that I can name I feel like that's kind of in the same ballpark is probably the Cardinals with them picking up Brown. Because you're going to have you got Brown, you got Hopkins, and you have AJ Green as well. So those 3 guys are pretty good as well. But besides them, I don't know another tandem that is good as this tandem we have here in New Orleans. I don't know.
Well, TC, so let me ask you this, okay? Because you have wide receivers, all 3 of them do the big 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Chris Olave, the elite route runner, the guy that can take it off the top. You have Jarvis Landry, the guy that wants to go in traffic, right? Like, at least when I was at Southeastern, we called him the headhunter. Like, hey, I want to run the slant.
Yeah.
I want to light somebody up. And then you have Michael Thomas, the possession guy. Yes, he can break it up, but the big hands guy. That's the way, at least what we called it, big hands. Again, if you're going based off philosophy of what you want in the offense, the big 3 is what you go after. Do you see them being the big 3? Because they all are different, but they all complement one another. Because if you're a linebacker and Jarvis is running a slant, and then you got a backside hitch or whatever you got on the backside, whatever's going on, you have to always be weary of the other guy because he's running his best route. As a defense, how difficult is it to game plan for all of that?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. And this is one thing that these 3 guys going to have to do well. They got to be able to block. I know they're great receivers, but they have to be able to block because Jameis Winston, he's great at the play action. And if you have receivers that can actually block in the run game, that's going to open up the play action game even more because those safeties going to be coming downhill when they see the receivers blocking, and then you just hit them with the play action game. But on top of that, another thing that's going to happen if you can block, it's going to leave these defensive coordinators in kind of a situation where they don't know whether to go nickel. When I say nickel, I'm talking about taking a linebacker out of the game. When we go 3 wide, do they take a linebacker out of the game and put in another cover corner in the slot? Or do you keep that linebacker in the game? Because when you got receivers that can block, now they don't know what we're going to do. Are we going to throw it or are we going to run it? And if we can run the ball, I mean, when I was in Dallas, Todd Haley was my receiver coach. He wanted he wanted receivers on the field all the time. He wanted to go 4 wide if he could. But the only way we could do that is we got to be able to block. We got to be able to run the ball out of a 3 wide set because that's going to put the defense in a compromised position. They don't know whether to go nickel or to keep that linebacker in the game because our receivers block so well. So that is the biggest thing that I see that our receivers have to do to be successful offensively, not just pass catchers. They have to be able to block, and that's going to open up so many other things if they all can block.
I think that's a point that I didn't even really think about, okay, because the Pete Carmichael, Sean Payton offense is predicated off a live screen play action type of stuff. It's something that you know what, TC, that's why you're here, man, because it's something that I just didn't even like. It didn't. When you think of receivers, right? You don't think about them doing that. What's interesting when you bring that up, Jarvis Landry's a headhunter. Like we remember Jarvis in the national title run for LSU on special teams, lighting dudes up at Auburn, lighting dudes up against Alabama, like being that dude. And Michael Thomas is one of the more physical wide receivers in the league. I mean, that's a disappointment, TC, that I didn't even consider about that. Now, you know, you say that. So I don't look in today's game. I always feel like they're going to put in the other nickel or the flex guy, the guy, the tweener, you know, like if you can, but not every team has that.
Nope, they don't. And especially, I mean, they may have him, but he may not be as athletic as they want him to be when it comes to guarding receivers. You know,
that's
so
what makes CJ Gardner-Johnson so beautiful. Right? Like that's what makes CJ so wonderful, because he really is a safety, but he's in the slot. That's what makes him elite for what he does.
Because he can come down and stop the run and he can cover. You know, so it just helps out both worlds. But like I said, all teams don't have that guy. They don't have that guy. So we can really put people in a bind. But like I said, our receivers have to be able to block in order to maximize the potential of the offense. They got to be able to block.
We have some comments throwing in here. I like this one from Tony, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. If Mike Thomas and Deebo are wash, yeah, I know you're talking about Ayuk, but what does Olave and Landry give you? You know, like there's different levels to this. You know, and quite honestly, what does Marquez Callaway give you? I mean, another guy that you have to account for. And so for that reason alone, look, he's a big body wide receiver. I mean, there's again, and Be Good, our good friend Be Good says, Blake, you're hard on Jameis. No, I had a viral video defending Jameis Winston that I got a lot of flack for, but there isn't an excuse, right? Like, you know, they're just because look, you go and give him a left tackle, you go and give him, you make all these moves, right? Like you make all these moves to go get the left tackle, get Olave. You go and get Jarvis. I mean, you can't you can't say that it's not. Now, TC, let me ask you this from a player's aspect, and only really you can give this answer. When you see an organization, even if you're on the team or you're not on the team, maybe you're on another team's or another organization's team. When you see a team like a Saints making these kind of moves, what does it say to the rest of the league or the team?
Man, it's telling us that we better be ready to play. That's what it's telling you. We better be ready to play, and everybody, because everybody see these moves, and everybody gonna feel like, you know, the Saints have loaded. And trust me, they are loaded. I feel like they're loaded. We are in a position to, if we continue to trust the process and go through the process, you know, and not cut corners, in which I don't think they will. We have a chance to really, we talked about on the last show, of really being there at the end when everything's all said and done. So that's what teams are thinking. Like, we just got to be ready to play. We got to be ready to play. That's all it is.
Ant Marshall fires in a question. He says, #ask. Excuse me, guys. I'm still getting over the sinus infection, but no more fever though, TC. That's the plus sign. That's the plus sign. But #ask TC. Is there a need? Is there a need for OBJ at this point? Should they sign him? Now, look, there was a big thing this week, obviously. Jarvis Landry and OBJ are best friends. They want to be with one another. They always have been. They always will be. I mean, that literally they face each other. I think they said like at least an hour each other a day. No, I don't think that there's a spot for OBJ. But again, do you tell OBJ no? Like if he wants a 1 year, $3 million deal, TC, do you tell him no?
So the first thing I have to see is, how is his injury, his knee injury?
Right.
How is that shaping up? Because at the end of the day, $3 million is still a lot of money. It's still a lot of money to throw to somebody that you don't know if he's healthy or not. You know, you just don't know. You don't know how he's going to come back. So I would say I would have to see him. I wouldn't just flat out say no, I wouldn't have him, but I would have to see him. But on top of that, when you sign these receivers, you gotta have at least one of those receivers that can play special teams. You can't just take all the receivers to the game and none of them playing special teams because you only can dress out 45 guys. So each receiver, and if you're not a starter playing receiver, if you're not a starter, you got to play special teams. And the big three is not going to play special teams. Thomas not going to play. Olave not going to play. Landry not going to play special teams. So that fourth receiver that you have on that roster has to be able to play special teams. So that's going to take into account as well. So I don't know. I mean, you can never have too many good receivers on one team, but some of those receivers got to make sacrifices, whether they're not going to be dressed out because they don't play special teams and we need an extra DB because he does play special teams. So it all depends. But you can never have enough receivers, but one of them is not going to be happy if he's not dressed out or if he got to play special teams. But somebody got to play it.
What's the old look? Let me say this because the LSU podcast that we do every week, every day, if they hear me saying this, they'll rip me a new one and they'll cancel me. I love Jarvis. I love Odell Beckham. Okay. However, as the old saying goes, 2's the company, 3's the crowd, 4 is just too many damn people. When you do have that many mouths you have to feed, it does start to become a problem. Tampa Bay last season is a key component in that. Okay, because I get Antonio Brown, God bless him, may have some things going on. But we also saw some of the receivers chirping at Tom during the playoff game. We haven't seen that a lot. Now, I think you're good. Now, again, maybe I'm wrong with that, TC, but again, 3's a company, 4's just too many damn people. Of that caliber.
It all depends on if the receivers.
Yep, go ahead. My bad.
I think as long as it's not an issue if the receivers know their role. I think if they're number one, then and you got 4-headed guys that's all think they're number one, then that might be an issue. Understand their role, then that's a great problem to have. So it all depends on the mindset of the receivers that you're bringing in, because that's going to be the ones determine if it's a good move or not when it comes to mentality, when it comes to them wanting the ball more, or throw me the ball, like, oh, Keyshawn, throw me the damn ball. If they come in with that mentality, then it could be tough. But if they come into a mentality that we just want to win by any means necessary, we trying to win a Super Bowl, bring a Super Bowl back to New Orleans, then it'll work because everybody's there for the same cause. Nobody's there trying to, oh, I need the ball more and things like that. So I think it all depends on the mindset of the receivers you bringing in.
Right. I agree. Last thing on this, and then we can move to the next topic. I know this is going to be a corny question, but I think it's a very strong, realistic question. How much do these weapons? I don't know how to ask this other than just coming out and asking it. Do you think that they're doing that? Because look, under Sean Payton, we didn't make this many free agency moves. I'm not getting into the LSU debate. Did Sean dislike or like LSU guys? At this point, I just think it's frivolous because he's not here anymore. But TC, the one thing that I can't get out of my mind though is, and this is episode 3 between us two, and I've always come at least with one conspiracy theory. Now you shot me down on 2. I'm going to see if I can if I'm going to get it the third time. Dennis Allen still is 8-28 as a head coach. Technically 9-28 if you want to count the Tampa Bay game that when Sean was out with COVID, right? I feel like you got to give him that game because he was a head coach.
Right.
Do you think that the Saints are making these moves to try to help Dennis to calm himself down a little bit? meaning like, hey, man, I got Tyrann Mathieu on the back end that can help me defensively. I got Jarvis Landry and Mike Thomas that can help me with Chris Olave and Jameis. Do you think that they're doing this too a little bit? I know you want to win a Super Bowl. I'm not meaning it like that. But you got to help your head coach that's struggled before in this position. Do you think that there's any correlation that you make these moves to try to help out a young staff? Because look, other than Chris Richard and Dennis Allen, you don't really have a lot of coordinator experience. Now, I know Pete Carmichael's been there a long time, but he hasn't called plays as long as some guys in the league. Like, for an example, Eric Bieniemy's called more plays in two playoff series than Pete Carmichael's called in a season. So for that reason alone, do you think you have it in the back of your mind to go get as much talent as you can to help your young coaching staff and your young head coach?
Yes. Yes, that's not a conspiracy. That's the truth.
Okay, so look, I didn't strike out. I finally didn't strike out.
Yeah, that is the truth. If you look at leadership, if you look at leadership, look at the head coaches. Coach's job is to put their players in the best position to succeed. So when it comes to management and ownership, their job is to put their coach in the best position to succeed. And it's not just with New Orleans, it's any coach. Management, front office, they're going to try to bring the best players in for their coaches to succeed. And definitely with Coach Pete, they're putting weapons around him. This is his first year being a play caller. Doing the play calling by himself. So they're going to try to give him weapons to help him out as much as possible. If the organization wasn't doing that for their coaches, then I would say something might be wrong. So I think what the Saints are doing is the same thing any great organization is going to do: put the best players around their coaches and their offensive coordinators to make them or give them the best possible chance to succeed when it comes to players. And then the head coaches and the coaches do the exact same thing for the players. They're going to put you in position to succeed. That is their job. So I don't think there's anything bad behind it. I think it's just what they're supposed to do.
I agree. The stupidest thing for me in all of the NFL is, I'll use Joe Burrow as an example because we got a huge Louisiana fan base. Was when Joe was coming out in the draft and why he shouldn't, like people were saying why he shouldn't go number one overall. It's because he had Jarvis Landry, because he had Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all guys that pretty much went in the first and second round. Only one guy went in the second round. But then when it gets in the NFL, it's how do we get Joe Burrow help around him? Where's this offensive line? Where's his core receiver? And I'm thinking to myself, like, wait a minute. So you ding a guy in college because he plays with good athletes and good teammates, but yet when he gets to the NFL, you want him to get better guys around him. TC, it's never made sense to me, right? Like it's never. I love Stephen A. Smith to death, but he played with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. So what? But now you want people the organization to get guys and pieces around him. It's never made sense to me ever.
You know what? I kind of see it on both ends, because when you're in college, you come out of college and you're thinking about spending a lot of money, investing a lot of money in the draft pick. You want to really make sure you cover all bases. Okay, why is he this good? Is he this good because he's got so much talent around him? Because it's a big decision to draft somebody in the first round, especially the quarterback position. Because if you draft wrong, it can set your program back some years. If you draft wrong, if you bust on a first round draft pick, especially at the quarterback position, it could really hurt your organization for years to come. So you got to really weigh all your options when it comes to drafting anybody in the first round. You got to really weigh out everything. So once you do draft a guy like Joe Burrow, now you got to put talent around him. You have to. So I get why they was questioning it before. Okay, why is he good? Because he have these guys around him. I get that, because they got to make a decision on if they're going to draft him or not. So they got to play devil's advocate sometimes. But once he gets with your team, now you got to put weapons around.
We had a text into the show, me and my other show, but they still texted in. They sent me the stats of Jarvis Landry. So shout out to our good friend Al. Yes, Jarvis Landry's stats did go down from 19 to 20 to 21. 83 catches, 72 to 52. He was a little injured in that. I'm not, so to Al, who's out there listening to us, no, I don't. TC, at least for me, it doesn't bother me at all. I think Baker Mayfield got worse too. So it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all either. Prime example, look at Odell Beckham. Once he left Baker Mayfield and went to the Rams, he was killing it before he got injured. You know, he was doing a great job.
TC, the first 6 passing attempts, 4 were to Odell.
See?
1 for a touchdown. Okay.
know?
And Sean McVay, for an example, when the Saints rumors started piling on, he came out today and says, I want Odell. We like basically, in not so many words, he goes, I'm finding who I have to cut. It's exactly what he's saying. You know, like that's it. Hey, man, he's putting everybody on the chopping block. I mean, an offensive guy wants somebody on the chopping block who just won a Super Bowl. He's going to get it. TC, let's move forward here because we're about halfway through the show, and you know Drew Brees more than anybody. Okay. Mm-hmm. And Drew came under some scrutiny this week for whatever reason because of his NBC deal. And then he came out on Twitter and said, I might come back and play. I might do my business. I might play pickleball. I might coach my sons in football. I have so many options. I don't know what I'm doing yet. Mm-hmm. But there was this narrative that Drew Brees is a fake guy, and he's faking it in the booth. I don't know, Drew, so I'm going to digress. I'm going to give it to you, a guy that does know him. Mm-hmm. You mentioned this earlier in the show. Why is Drew taking criticism for wanting to do what's best for him? Like, and two, to add to this question, who is Drew Brees? Like, we know Drew Brees, the buttoned up CEO, crew cut, you know, all-American boy, whatever people call him these days. Mm-hmm. Whatever. Who really is Drew Brees, though?
You know, Drew Brees is a guy that if you didn't know he was Drew Brees, you wouldn't know he's Drew Brees. You know, he's that guy. You know, you got to know that he's Drew Brees to know it because he don't wear it on his sleeve. He'll come into a conversation, have a regular conversation with you like he been knowing you forever. You know, so it's not, he's really that guy that he's made out to be. He's humble. He's the ultimate leader. He leads by example. You know, he's just one of those guys that you're always going to have his back. You're always going to go to battle for him. Like I mentioned earlier, if he lived in Cali, like I said, I don't know where Drew lived at, but if he lived out in California and he called, I can put this on any of his teammates. If he called any of us and said, listen, Cop, I need you to fly out California tomorrow or in a couple of days, I need some help with something. I'm coming. But it's not just me. I can promise you, any of his teammates that he had, former teammates, would say the exact same thing about Drew Brees. That's why I don't know how anybody can say anything negative about him. I just don't know how.
I don't know either. And it was kind of more of the entertainment side. Like he's too buttoned up. He's too this. He's too that. So what? That's not, you see, that's not what he's there for. You know, like as someone in your position, right, as a former NFL player, okay, you are the star of the show. Okay, there's no debating that. Like it is what it is. Again, it's my job as the color or the analyst to pull your knowledge out of you to get through to that point. That's what makes Tony Romo. Okay, like when Jim Nantz is asking him, Tony, why are they in 12 personnel here? Tony, why are they in 11 personnel? And then Tony spits off why, and he says they're about to run a 34 dive, and then they're going to come right behind it and do a play action, quick whatever he says. Okay, that's because Nantz is pulling it out of him. I mean, there's nobody better than that than Drew.
Yeah,
literally nobody.
Yeah.
So I don't understand this. I don't understand the narrative behind this. Look, if Drew wants to play pickleball for the, TC, I don't know what pickleball is. I mean, I do, but I don't. If he wants to do it, and see, here's where I stand. Okay, you just told me something, and I'm coming at it from a fan perspective, and I get it. If the man wants to entertain coming back, though, there's nothing that you don't open that door open for him. Okay, now I know I'm going long-winded, but when Jerry West was the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, he took a step back when they got Magic. Okay, but Jerry West was always there. The logo was always there. If Drew Brees wants to be a part of the front office, how much do you want, Drew? You signed the check because he changed your franchise forever. I mean, there's nothing. I get the playing part, right? Like I get it. Drew. Look, there at the end, you admitted TC. Let's call it what it is. He admitted he couldn't throw the ball past 15 yards. That's on his own admission. Okay, so for whatever it's worth, okay. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If he wants the conversation, you give it to him.
Right. I agree with it.
I'm sorry I went Southern Baptist pastor on you there, but I just can't help it, man. I can't help it. I mean, I went. I got my producer. We got our producer back here, Pooh Bear, saying testify. I mean, he's in the comments saying testify, preach. And then he sends Blake, we got to go to supper. You got to wrap this up like we are in the congregation. I mean, but seriously though, I can't take it. TC, I can't take it. If the man wants to be a part of whatever he wants to be a part of with, I don't have a Saints logo on, but with a Saints logo, you do it, right? Like he's owed that.
Yep. I agree with you.
Okay. Sorry. I don't know how to transition from that. So I'm not a good analyst.
Quarterback coach. I would love to see that.
TC, you're kind of lagging a little bit. What was that? I'm sorry.
I said I would love to see Drew Brees as the quarterback coach as well.
TC, if he wants to do it, give him the opportunity. You don't have a limit in staff.
No.
Hey, TC, let me ask you this question. If I was your wide receivers coach and Jerry Rice walked through the door and Jerry Rice told you to run a slant route this way and I told you to run it another way, which way are you running it?
Man.
You better say Jerry Rice because I don't know how to run a quick slant. I mean,
that's it would be crazy to say that. I guess I'm getting too technical with it, but yeah, I guess you're right. Jerry Rice.
Look, you could respect your coach. Look, this is how I always took it. Okay. You can respect your coach. Do what your coach tells you to do. But when it comes game time, if Jerry Rice tells me to stutter, then go, then my break, because this guy's opening his hips this way, TC, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it. At least I'm going to try
it. The crazy thing about it is you're hitting it right on the head because when I was in New Orleans, receiver coach, we call him Tiger CJ, which CJ was probably one of the best receiver coaches in the NFL. Still is. But he said the exact same thing. He's like, listen, fellas, we know what we're telling you to do. But when the game come on, when we start playing and Drew tell you to run it this way, run it that way, do what Drew tell you to do. So you hitting it right on the head with that. You hitting it right on the head. Yep.
So, and let's talk on this because this is where Jameis has to lead this team too. Again, Jameis has to bark out to Michael Thomas to run a quick slant if he wants him to run it. And nobody batted an eye on Drew. Now, I don't think, I do think that there can be some things that can hurt you if Drew returns. Like, hey, am I going to listen to Drew or Jameis? And I understand that, like it's a locker room divided, are you on this guy's side or this guy's side? But again, Drew is owed his due, no matter what. Now, let me ask you this too, and we'll end this thing on Drew and talk about MinicCamp because we're kind of wrapping up here, and I want to get to MinicCamp. God, I need to ask it. I should ask it, but I'm hesitant to, like the last one. If Dennis Allen was asked about this Drew Brees situation, and he basically shrugged it off and kind of got the thing like, "Hey man, no, this is my time." I mean, I get it, but do you think Dennis is kind of putting his foot down too when he says like, "Hey man, no, this is our time. You know, like this is my show." Do you think that that's right of him to do though?
I think it's right for him to do that, to shrug it off, because there's no validation to it. You know,
Right.
validation to that Drew is coming back. So why waste your time? He got a lot of other things he needed to be worrying about than worrying about rumors that Drew is coming back and there's no accuracy to it. So yeah, I'm fine with him shrugging it off.
Brittany Breeze wouldn't let that happen. Them kids wouldn't let that happen. Let's just be honest. I mean, Daddy, you ain't going nowhere. Like we'll lock you up in this house. I mean, you ain't going nowhere. You used to be fast, now you slow. Now we can catch you.
Yep.
TC, I want to get to this because I think it's interesting. And then we can wrap it up.
Okay.
Saints MinicCamp, Saints rookie MinicCamp. See, Chris Olave balled out, but former LSU wide receiver and others kind of had a really good year. Now, D. Anderson's had some issues off the field that we're not going to really mention because that's a different topic for a different day. When you see a young cat, I forget that I think it was Hard Knocks in Miami when Danny Amendola balled out and they started calling him 7-Eleven. You sometimes always find these smaller guys that come out of nowhere and start taking mini camps over and camps over. How big is it for rookies this past week? Like, can you make a stamp on who you are this early in a rookie mini camp?
Yes, I mean, because it's your first impression. You only get one chance to make a first impression. That's it. So, and even though, yeah, you got drafted by New Orleans, or New Orleans brought you in for training camp, whatever it is, this is their first time seeing you in action, in person, in a practice setting. So you always want to put your best foot forward because you only get one shot at a first time impression. So yeah, you got to go out there and play your butt off. And everybody know the NFL stands for not for long. So if you go out there, if you want to, bull jiving around, you might not be back for veterans camp, especially if you're not an early draft pick. So you don't know. So you got to go out there and play hard every single day, and you got to treat practice just as much. You got to treat practice just as important as games, because that's what you get better at in practice. Games just give you that experience, but you get better in practice. And that's how in practice is going to be harder than the games. It's supposed to be harder than the games.
It's so interesting you say that. Guys at LSU and Bama always used to talk about practice was harder than the game, like the game was a relief. It's so wild. It's so wild because look, I didn't come from I didn't play in the NFL, but I didn't play in a big college. Like practice was not harder to me than facing Fletcher Cox, a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Okay, like it was never harder than that. But I think you're right. When you have a D. Anderson who struggled off the field, okay, but he comes in and TC, he balls out. He's beating every DB that you have. He's beating some other rookie guys and saw one veteran guy that's kind of showing up there just to get some quick reps. And you're beating them one-on-one. I think that does show the organization that not only can you play, but TC, it kind of shows me you're serious about it too, right? Like you're taking this serious. This isn't a game to you. And you're ready to go. Chris Olave, though, he balled out. When you hear stories about that, what's funny is that a season ago, like Jamar Chase, he can't catch the football. Chris Olave, was reported, we had 3 drops. Please, as a receiver, tell me, like, it's okay to drop a pass in practice, right? Like, you can actually drop a pass in practice and be a good damn wide receiver, right? I'm not crazy on this one.
So you can drop balls in practice and be a great receiver, but it's not okay to drop balls in practice. So I get that part, but you can't drop a lot of them, but you can still drop balls and still be a great receiver. It's not like, okay, I dropped one ball. I mean, or 1 or 2 balls now, I'm terrible. It's not like that, but it's still not okay to be dropping balls. But we understand it's going to happen. But in the NFL, you don't want to drop a lot of balls. But we do understand that's going to happen. And that's not going to determine if you're a great receiver or not, especially at rookie minicamp. It's still rookie minicamp. You got to keep it in perspective. It's not week one. It's not training camp. These things are going to happen anyway, but it's just rookie camp.
I just imagine a Division VI quarterback throwing you the football that they just signed. Like the Saints always find like a guy that played like at William and Mary College A&M, like William and Mary A&M, and all of a sudden he throws the ball 72 yards. Like Jesus, that's always been the crazy thing for me. And I agree with you. Like if it's a couple days of rookie minicamp, sure, but if it continues to happen, it can't. I agree, it can be a big deal.
Yeah.
TC, what else? I mean, we've talked a lot. There's been a lot in the news. Do you think there's anything that we need to talk about that we missed from tonight's show?
I think we hit on everything that's relevant right now. I think we hit on everything.
Okay, let's get to a couple of these comments then. The Golden Boot Pod says #AskTC. Is the biggest hurdle in learning NFL offenses the terminology or the actual scheme? I think that's a great question.
So it all depends on what college you came from. Because for me, when I came out of East Carolina, and yeah, we might not be at Alabama or LSU, but we ran a pro style offense under Steve Logan when I was at East Carolina. So when I got to Dallas, when I got to the NFL, the schemes was actually kind of the same, but the verbiage was different. So what we may called oranges at ECU, when I got to the NFL, they called it apples. But you understood the scheme of it because that's the reason why that's the good part about running a pro style offense coming out of college. It helps you adjust quicker when you get to the league. Now you still got to learn that playbook. You still got some learning curves, but your adjustment when it comes to play calling and understanding the scheme of the play. If you come from an offense in college that's already running a pro style offense, it just helps you catch up quicker.
With teams going to the spread, I know the ECU ran an air raid. Lincoln Riley was there for a while. I mean, the teams have done this RPO game. There's really not a lot of verbiage you can get in the RPO game. Like fake 23. I feel like I'm Coach Herman Boone from the Remember the Titans. Fake 23 blast with a backside Georgia reverse. I mean, you can't really do anything else than that, right? Do you think with the new offense and schemes like what Kansas City likes to run and what Cincinnati and maybe what we'll see a little bit with New Orleans, the verbiage is a little bit condensed? Do you think obviously that has to help players nowadays with install and scheme, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know for me, when I came in, I used to love, and I know it's bad on the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks may not like it. The long plays that they calling out. And the reason why, because when they're giving these long plays, the quarterback giving these long plays, he's really telling everybody what to do. So there's really not a lot of thinking that's going on because he's really tagging everybody. He's giving you a play and he's really telling everybody what to do. So I like the long verbiage because it just helps me out a lot more. But of course, it can get long for quarterbacks. They may not want to give all that verbiage, but it helps the team out though because he's really tagging everybody on what to do. So it makes it a lot easier when it is a longer play call.
I like the longer verbiage too as an offensive lineman, especially being a center. For an example, like from offensive line standpoint, let me give an example. If your trip's right and your X is running, your backside X or the X is running a slant or whatever it may be, okay, and you see a protection, like you see a outside blitzer coming, I'm not going to slide the line to that side of the field, right? I'm going to slide it actually to the opposite side of the field to create lanes for the quarterback, right? Like those are small things, and I agree with you there. Like the longer verbiage can help out players, believe it or not, to understand more because again, if a safety is walking down, why am I gonna shift over a left tackle or left guard that's 6'5", 6'4" to a quarterback that might be 6'2"? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And you see a lot of quarterbacks doing that, a lot of centers moving it to the opposite side to create throwing lanes that normally wouldn't be there. So I think it's an interesting point. One last question. And Marshall always fires in these good ones in here, but he says, #AskTC, what makes a good guy a special teamer? Is it just hustle and high IQ from guys like Slater and Justin Hardy?
So what makes a guy a good special teamer is, for one, you got to want to play special teams. That's the first thing, because you have a lot of guys that's out there. And with me, I was real big on special teams. I was a special teams guy. You know, for one, you got to want to play it. You have a lot of guys that they're playing it, but they really don't want to play it. You know, I'm just out here because I'm not on the field on defense or offense. So you got to want to play it. And you gotta have a motor that don't stop. You can't stop. Your motor, you gotta be a high motor guy and determined, and also understand the schemes and what we're trying to get done. So, but the biggest part of it is to want to. You gotta want to play it. That's how you can become great at it. You have to want to play special teams. Of course, special teams, you don't want to just have that's your goal in life, just to stay a special teamer. But if that's your goal that's your role right now, you got to buy into it and take to that role. And that is how you become a special teamer. Of course, you got to have some talent. But you got to want to do it, and you got to have a high motor that just don't stop. And you got to be tough as nails.
I feel you. I mean, look, it's why Slater's been in the league 682 years. He played in the first Super Bowl, by the way. He played for Vince Lombardi. I mean, that's how long he's been in the league. Now he's with Belichick. He's been with Belichick all those years. All right, guys, it's been a good one. We'll see y'all again Thursday. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Live again Thursday, 8:00 p.m. Central Time. Well, I don't know what we're talking about, TC, but we'll find a good one. It's been a good one, my friend. Good 3 episodes. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too, man. You're doing a great job, Blake. You're doing a really good job.
You, man. I ask you silly, dumb questions, and you put the polish on the poo, as they would say. Not speaking of our producer, Pooh Bear, but really absolutely fantastic. All right, guys, we'll see y'all again soon. Y'all have a good night. Peace out, Girl Scouts.